I'm Bob Geller. Welcome to this episode of PR Done and Dunner. I am very excited to welcome our next guest. He's a veteran of marketing and an SEO and internet marketing expert. I think we met at the Social Tools Summit show in Boston a while back, where we both spoke on a panel, and he managed to beat me out for a social guru award, which I'll never forgive or forget. We've also done some guest blogging together over the years. I am thrilled to welcome Mark Traphagen, who currently serves as VP of Product Marketing and Training for SEO Clarity, which is an SEO platform. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
I am wonderful, Bob, and it's so great to reconnect with you. Going back from our Boston days to now online, it's always good to see wonderful old friends. And yeah, sorry about that award. I think it was a guru award, so I think it was my years of meditation that probably edged you out there.
Well, you certainly deserved it, so no worries there. But anyway, the topic today is SEO and PR. As you know, it's an important topic, yet I find too many PR pros look like they're deer caught in the headlights when asked about it. I mean, I think we all know it's important. Our colleagues, our clients, our employees, fellow marketers talk about it. We're hopefully supposed to be somewhat smart about it, yet it remains a mystery to many. I mean, I think most PR folks understand that high-value backlinks can help, and those are the kind that you get from articles, of course, in top publications and earned media. But it seems like these are harder to come by because many outlets intentionally do not include backlinks to vendors in the articles. So I'd like to use this as a chance to help PR pros who, as we know, are increasingly helping with things like content and social media marketing, understand best practices and answer common questions. Does that make sense?
It sounds great. Love talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, one thing just at the outset, it'd be good to remind us all of the importance and the ongoing relevance of SEO. We know there's a lot of other marketing and online marketing things you can do, but SEO remains incredibly important generally, doesn't it?
It sure does. And I'm not just saying that because it's my job and I want to keep it. But our own figures. So at SEO Clarity, we're an enterprise level SEO platform. Thousands of the largest brands in the world use us. We have access to many thousands of sites, many trillions of pages that we look at every day. And what we see across all of that data consistently year in, year out is that organic search traffic coming from search engines, not from advertising on those search engines, tends to be almost consistently the largest traffic driving channel for most websites.
Wow.
Unless you've done something, you're just new and invisible to Google, or you've done something either technically wrong or otherwise wrong that causes Google to not want to show you or not index you. In most cases, it's going to be the largest channel. We consistently show year in and year out that on the average, it's about 30% of the traffic for the average site that goes to the largest channel of all. So yeah, it's important. And it's important too, because search is where people go when they want to know something or buy something. And if you're in business, you want to be able to fulfill both of those needs. Knowing comes more at the top of the channel, getting your brand known to people, establishing yourself as an expert or as super helpful to people. And then of course, buying is what we're all in business for. So yes, organic search is where people go with intent. They want to do something. They want to get something done. So if you're the solution for that thing and you can be found on search, that's incredibly valuable traffic.
Absolutely. And as you say, just the fact that somebody's searching for something shows intent. One area we struggle in is many of our clients are startups. They're all tech companies. Sometimes they're coming to the market with disruptive approaches. They're introducing new kinds of technologies, even new categories of tech. So in those cases, it's not entirely clear what to search for. So I guess my point is that PR, getting the word out through earned media channels and through other PR channels, is great to work hand in hand with search, where people, with the PR, we can build awareness, educate, and then hopefully people will go and search for those kinds of things. But it'd be good to know also what's new in the field. What are some of the latest Google PageRank or algorithmic changes, and what's their relevance for PR?
Sure. Well, Google is constantly changing. It's the one thing that makes my job and my business in this industry so endlessly fascinating for me, because it never gets boring. We never know what they're what they're going to be doing next. And they, of course, they only ever tell us so much of what they're doing because they don't want us gaming their
Sure.
system. But we do know, more and more certain things, and a data platform like ours, like SEO Clarity, we have the opportunity, again, as I said, to look at, literally trillions of searches every day, and be seeing what happens with those and tracking how Google changes what it shows. And so it's a way of back engineering and trying to figure out, what matters to Google. And I think the biggest thing that I would want to communicate to your audience is that we see this shift over the years from Google. Back in the early days, it was pretty simple. It was about the words you had on the page. We call those keywords.
Right.
And, in the very earliest rudimentary forms of search engines, it was about just simply matching up those words. If you had the right words on the page that matched what somebody was putting in their search query, then you could potentially show up, high in search and be a search result. It's become much more complicated and much more sophisticated than that now. But I think the main thing to concentrate on is, as far as from your website's standpoint, is that Google is more and more wanting to be not only providing the best answer, but the best answer with the best user experience. So they're getting better at using artificial intelligence to suss out what is most likely to be useful to real human beings. So, the number one piece of advice I can give for SEO is to be incredibly useful, to be thinking about your audience, researching your audience. You brought up that example a moment ago. Let me talk about it briefly, where you talked about a startup who maybe is in a disruptive field. They're creating something new, and it's not something that people have been searching for before. Well, there's an example of where not only do you, like you said, PR comes very much into play there because you're building the brand, you're getting awareness out there, you're creating you got to go and create a demand that people will begin to search for. But also you need to be doing research and thinking in terms of what are things related that people do search for already that might be relevant to your topic, or another way that people would think about it, and start creating content on your site about that for things that people will be searching for, but then you have an opportunity to educate them about your new thing.
Does that tie in with things that we've all heard about, like keyword research? I'd assume there's similar tools, maybe SEO Clarity does that to help you better understand that space that the clients are competing in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, a tool like SEO Clarity is great for that. Keyword research is really the starting place of at least one aspect of SEO. I want to mention just quickly before we talk about that there's many aspects to SEO, all of which are important. So we can talk about, relevance, which is, trying to create content in a site that is relevant to what people search for, that's related to your field or your business. There's authority. You mentioned things like links earlier, that all different
Sure.
signals that Google uses to determine like who matters in that area when somebody's searching for something. But there's also the whole area of usability, which includes technical aspects of your site. You have to have, these days it's becoming more important to Google, more and more important, not only that you have a site that their search bot can crawl through and then therefore index, but also that is good for users, that has good usability, that it loads quickly, it looks good, it's easy to navigate, there's not a lot of distracting things, ads and pop-ups and things getting in the way of the content. So all these things are to keep in balance. But let's return for a second to keyword research, because it's the start of telling you what you should create. And keyword research is simply research that you do to find out what are people searching for that's relevant to your site or your business. So it's finding out, it's not assuming. Part of that you can do through brainstorming. Obviously,
Right.
know your business,
Right.
you can kind of guess, but tools can help you in this regard. Tools like SEO Clarity to figure out and find out things that you may not have thought about. At SEO Clarity, we call it using the wisdom of the crowds. And we have tools for that, that help you see the things that other people think are relevant, the things they type into Google, that this is the way I think about this, or the way I talk about this, which may not be the way you talk about it, but you want to be creating content for the way that people are thinking about your business, your industry, your site.
Absolutely. I mean, you say brainstorming. We do that, of course. We look at keywords that we think people will be using, but there's no substitute for hard data and for a tool which makes us all easier to navigate what people are searching on. What are some related terms? Seems to me that's extremely valuable. You mentioned user experience a few times from the Google perspective, as far as I'm imagining part of this relates to how the search engine results appear. And maybe there's ways to tailor your site and how it appears in the search engine index to provide more useful information. Is that right?
Absolutely. We talk about user experience. That's something that's become more important to Google over the years. And here's why. You're like, why does Google care about that? Why does Google care what happens on your site when somebody clicks through? It's simply because that reflects on Google. When people click on a Google result, they not only want the right answer or the right product or whatever it is that they're searching for, but they don't want to be frustrated. They don't want to get on a site where it takes forever to load, or they can't actually find the information they were looking for, or there's a lot of distracting things. It's hard to navigate all these things. And ultimately, even subconsciously, Google knows that reflects back on them. If they kept sending people to bad websites, eventually people would stop using Google, because they don't just want information, they want an experience. So Google has been investing a lot in determining those things. One of the things you can search for and look up is the page experience update. That's been something Google's been talking about for a couple of years. It is now rolling out. It's live. They're rolling it out gradually over this summer. But what the page experience update is, it's a collection of factors that Google has determined these are the main things that people want as far as the web experience. At the core of it, in fact, they call these things the core web vitals, are some metrics that have to do with page loading. So page speed is very much the center of that. Anything that you can learn to do to improve that page load experience, especially on mobile devices where people have very little patience for things going slowly. And this includes not just how fast the page loads, but how quickly can somebody get to the content that they're looking for? How quickly do things stop moving around on the page? All these kinds of things are things that you want to be learning about and investing in to improve your site. Because when at the end of the day, when Google looks at search results and says, like, well, you and some other page, you both have good information, you're both relevant to this query the person's typed in, but the other site, your competitor, has a better page experience, we're going to push them up higher. So it matters. So quickly, some other things aside from page speed that are involved in this, things like security, especially if you're selling things on your site. It's absolutely essential now to have a secure website where you get that HTTPS URL that comes up in Google. Then, things like mobile friendly, being mobile friendly, that your site performs well and shows up well and is usable on mobile. A number of things, but just it's. Everything that Google is doing, I can say, is pushing us to think more and more like our users, which is a good thing for all of us. Like, how can we give them the best experience?
Absolutely. Well, I was talking also not about it's interesting to hear what you're saying about the website experience. And I'd imagine, have they published these criteria somewhere?
And again, Google page experience update, and you'll get the Google documentation on that and some really good articles that will help you understand what that's about.
Do you think most UX professionals agree with that criteria? I'd imagine they probably do. Google's pretty smart about this stuff.
Yeah.
But what about the experience, the Google experience? And again, coming back to the search engine results, that's a certain experience, right?
Yes, it is.
And the way they show the results varies. And I guess my point before was, shouldn't companies be thinking about how their page might appear? And are there special things they can do to their website to call out certain sections? Sometimes Google has different ways of listing things. It's funny. Just this morning, I was listening to a podcast by some Google experts, not experts, but actually Googlers, employees of Google who are involved in communicating about search to the search community. And they started this podcast called Search Off the Record, which I highly recommend. 30-minute podcast where you're hearing it straight from the mouth of Google search people. They're talking about that. And one of the things they talked about this morning was universal search. And what universal search is back in the old days of Google, you used to just get like the 10 web links, 10 blue links on there. If you wanted to search for videos or images or other kinds of things, you had to go to a separate part of Google to do that. And of course, you still can. There's still Google Images, there's still Google Video Search. But a number of years ago,
they began to integrate that all. So all these different kinds of search features can show up together. They call that universal search. And then of course they have to determine like what's most useful to the user. Is showing a traditional, text page, or maybe a video, or maybe an image, or some other kind of, of result. So that on our side, what we need to be looking at is there's many different ways to qualify for showing up in search. And I would encourage people to explore those, to improve the images that you're using, make sure that your images are very relevant to your content, and that they are well tagged, so they're described. Also, and then videos. Absolutely, video is something that everybody should be thinking about and exploring and putting on their site, because often that's the kind of content that Google wants to surface. One more quick thing about that, it was interesting from this podcast they talked about this morning, is you go to some results and it's pretty much just the traditional text results. You go to others and there's other things mixed in. How does Google determine what type of content should show up? Well, Gary Ish from Google said that they learn that. Their artificial intelligence goes out and learns that by user behavior. So if they see for a certain kind of query that people type in, a lot of people are clicking over to video search, then they say, oh, people want video. So they'll start showing more videos in the search results. But the takeaway here, I think, is to experiment with a lot of different kinds of content. Make your content as easy to understand as possible. If you're doing videos, get a transcript and put a transcript on the page. Make it easy for the search engines to understand what that video is about.
Is there some kind of grader, like GRADER, grader website, or maybe Google has utility, or maybe SEO Clarity, which will look at your website and kind of give you a Google's eye view on things you can do to optimize it, or what's working, what's not working?
Well, absolutely. Our platform certainly does that.
Nice softball, huh?
From every different, yeah. Thank you. SEO Clarity does that. The one thing that I'll be very honest about is that SEO Clarity in particular is designed to be particularly an enterprise level. Meaning it's designed for much larger websites than maybe a lot of your audience have, and so it's probably out of the price range, to be very honest. But we do have some free resources, free tools that we put out there that we can talk about at the end of the podcast. But I'll mention those. But there's other tools. There's point solution tools, as we call them, which are specifically for certain things. Like you can see how Google crawls your site, and make sure that your site, using what we call web crawler. There's a lot of tools out there to do that. The web crawler kind of simulates what Google does, and I'm getting a little technical here, maybe for some of the audience, but
we're tech marketers, so that's fine.
Okay, that's good. So you got to think basically, how does Google discover your site and what's on it? Well, they have these little web robots called Google bots, or web bots, that are just really software programs that go out on the internet, and then when they discover a website, they start going through the site, just like a user might if you discover a new site for the first time and you start clicking around and exploring what's there. And they go through the links on the site and discover the pages. And if it looks interesting, they start indexing them, which means that now that page and the information that's on it is accessible to Google's algorithm. Then the next step, of course, is you can be indexed but still not rank in Google. You still have to go like there's now the ranking algorithms, which when somebody types in a query, in a matter of microseconds, go out and look at all those indexed pages and decide which are the best, which are the most relevant to the query the person has typed in. So that's one type of tool that you can use, an auditing tool, a crawling tool, to make sure that your site is accessible and friendly to the Google bots and the other search engine bots. So that, because if you can't get indexed by a search engine, you can't show up for it in the first place.
Of course.
Then there's tools for doing, like we mentioned, keyword research before, for creating, helping you to optimize your content. These are all things that your audience can look into and look at the various solutions that are out there to help them do this better.
That's good to know, and appreciate the explanation. Our clients, for the most part, are startups. We do have a fair number of mid-size and even global enterprises. So there's a good chance that some might be of the right size to,
If you have enterprise clients out there listening, check out SEO Clarity. I know I'm going to say we're the best, but we're the best. Just like a one-point solution where we can integrate all of your data, and not only that, but help you, using our own artificial intelligence, machine learning, help you to see and gain insights about your site and about your content that you couldn't possibly get on your own.
Sounds incredibly useful. I want to bring the conversation back to some of the questions that are, really front and center for, our most, I guess, the most typical Fusion PR client, and that is the tech startup. So the question they often ask is, we're starting with our website. We launched a couple of years ago, or we founded the company a couple of years ago. Now we're launching, and, we're doing all the things we should be doing. We're optimizing the site. We're putting content on. It's a nice site. But realistically, how hard is it for a startup to displace a much bigger company in the rankings?
Well, I won't lie. It is hard. It's a challenge.
Why is that? Is that because of time, because of the depth of the content, reputation? What is all the backlinks? What is the stumbling block?
It's a combination of all of those things you just mentioned. You just did the answer right there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a complex answer, complex combination of all of those things. But basically, one of the factors, and I hesitate to use this word. I'm going to say the word trustworthiness, because Google, if you talk to Google search people, they'll say like, we don't have a trust rating. We don't have like a trust score, but they kind of do. And really, they're being a little bit maybe specific or pedantic when they say that they don't have a trust score, because they don't have a specific trust score, like one score for your website. But because of the complexity of how the analysis that they're able to do over time, they do have a sense that this established site, this big brand or whatever, the site that's been around for many years, that's got a lot of links to it, that's got a lot of traffic to it, that, it's a reliable site. And again, like we said in the beginning, Google's main goal is like, they want to get people to the best information and, the best experience overall. So it's not surprising that they're going to go with the tried and true and tried and tested over the new and who knows, right?
Right.
So it does take time. All I can say is search engine ranking, showing up in the search engines, getting traffic from that, it does take time. As we said at the beginning of the podcast, it's worth it, because if you do that investment, it will become the single biggest and often the highest converting channel for your site. But it takes time. And the only advice I can give is keep at it. Keep, especially on the content side, keep creating more and more highly relevant, highly useful content. And the more you can begin to create content that has something unique, it's offering a perspective or information or whatever that people aren't going to find in 1,000 other places on the web, the faster you'll get to the place where Google will begin to see you important. Then, of course, things like links matter. We could do a whole podcast on that, but make sure that you're getting links that matter. There's a lot of incentive, of course, to go out there and try to pay for or create opportunities for links. But Google, you should be aware, just like everything else, Google's getting much better at sniffing out where that's been done intentionally. Where it's obvious that this was a deal was made here to get this link, and they just discount those kinds of sources. So the absolute best way to get links is by creating content that's so amazing and fabulous and unique that other reputable sites want to link to it. They will cite it. That's the absolute best way.
Does it matter what kind of content or where it lives on the website? For example, a lot of our clients think that maybe putting more blog posts out that have the right keywords, is that a way to do it? Or is it product information, white papers? I don't know.
Almost all of the above. I think things like white papers have become less from a search standpoint, organic search standpoint, less important thing to be doing. And there's a lot of good reasons to do things like white papers. But from a search standpoint, we're talking about mostly like easily accessible content right on your site. A blog is a great thing to have. Absolutely. Totally encourage having a blog and keeping that blog updated because it shows the search engines that you have fresh content all the time, that you're updating the site. It can be the latest information. The one problem with the blog is just what it's designed to be, or what it was originally designed to be, which is basically a news feed. And so as something, you publish something new, it's at the top, it's close to the top of your site.
Right.
But over time, an old blog post begins to move down and become, deeper and deeper in the site. And Google interprets that as being then less important. Now, there's ways around that. One of the best things you can be doing and investing in, we think, in your site these days is internal linking, which means thinking about constantly, when you publish a new piece of content, think about what are some older pieces of content I have that are relevant to this that I can link to, because those links create a new level for that old page.
Really? That's good to know.
It kind of brings it up to the top again, and it's no longer just something buried deep down your blog, but now it's potentially an important resource within your site. So internal linking, I think is one of the best things. One more strategy on that very quickly is we highly recommend creating what we call pillar pages. So think about your most important topics, the things that matter to you most, the things that you're most likely to be found for, that are going to make a difference for you, and create those as actual high-level pages on your site, not a blog post, but a page. So let's say that you're, a big thing for you is running shoes. You should have a page on your site that's basically the high level, the summary of like what constitutes the best running shoe. What should you look for in the best quality running shoes, stuff like that. And that should be high up in the navigation of your site. Now from that page, you link out.
Sorry to interrupt. How would you navigate it to it? Or what would you call that kind of page? I mean,
just a regular page on your site, as opposed to a blog post. Just like you'd create, you create an about page on your site, you create a contact us. You can, on any website, you can create pages which are, have a permanent fixture in the hierarchy of your stats. And basically, the higher the higher a page is in the navigation of your site, the more important it will look to search engines. By higher, I mean simply like, think about it. When somebody comes to the home page, you have a navigation, usually at the top of your site or down the side. And those are the highest level pages. They're usually the top categories of your site. Then the pages that are directly linked to from those pages, your about page, your contact us page, your product page, probably product categories, whatever it is, those are the next level of importance. Right. So I'm talking about creating pages at that second or third level that become anchor pages about your important topic. And then you can link out to things like blog posts you've done that are about specific things about that topic. And you're creating what we call a topic cluster, which tells search engines that we have a lot about this content. It's important. It's central to our site. And all of this is important. And we've also done a good job of answering the many different questions or aspects of that topic. So we have a lot of content on the SEO Clarity site about topic clusters. I highly recommend people go and search our site, seoclarity.net, and just search for topic clusters, and you'll find a lot of good information about that and internal linking.
Do you point to any examples on your website or no?
Of that kind of
of websites who are doing a good job of that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not asking off the top of your head. I'm just wondering if you have on the website, if that's something you point to, or if not.
I think something that just off the top of my head, a site that I write for, Search Engine Journal, which is a publishing site.
Sure, I'm familiar.
So it's essentially, the site is a big blog, because every day they're publishing 10 to 15 new pieces of content, and that content moves down the feed, of course, as time goes by. But they also understand the strategy. So they also have pages on their site about main topics that are important to them.
But that's a publication. So isn't that different than like a vendor or e-commerce site?
Yeah, but it all works the same way. Okay. It's all the same functionality. So they understand we want to surface certain topics. So they create these pillar pages that are about that topic. And then they link out from those pages to blog content or other things on the site to increase the relevance of that content. But keeping it high in the navigation. So if you're an e-commerce site, the version of that you want to have is, again, thinking about what are your main product categories? Would be a great place to start. And sure, you have, like in your top navigation, you're going to have each of those product categories: shoes, dresses, shirts, whatever. If you're a clothing site, and those are probably going to go directly to subcategory pages, and then eventually to your actual product pages. But think also about creating off of those some high level relevant content about that. So I used the example before of, if shoes is one of your main product categories, then when people click on the shoes, give them a piece of content also that maybe right on that rain category page that helps advise them on how do you choose a good running shoe. What goes into the quality, what are the different types of running shoes, this kind of relevant content, because not only are you being helpful to your user, but that makes the page much more attractive to search engines. Search engines are hungry for useful content.
But does Google quote know their algorithm that this is informative content, not a product pitch, but this is more an educational page? They can. Well, it's Google, so
yeah, they can. Yeah,
they can figure that stuff out.
In fact, it's one of the things that at SEO Clarity that we in our research tools that we try to back engineer by looking at the SERPs and analyzing the content over time that Google tends to show for a certain keyword or a certain query. We can get an idea over time of, okay, this is more, Google thinks when people type this query in, they're looking for information. But when they type this set of words in, they're looking more for products. They want to buy something. Or maybe they're looking navigational, like they want to find the best place to go. There's all different kinds of user intents. And we know Google evaluates that and looks at it because we can see how the search results change over time. So just quickly on that, like how we see that is, let's say something new, a brand new query comes up. This happens all the time. Something that people haven't searched for before, but now they're searching for it. When Google first starts putting results up for that, it will often have a variety of results. So some things on the search page will be more informational, some will be more transactional, some will be more this or that. And over time, they learn, they see, what do people click on when they type that query? And they say, oh, people are looking for information. So you'll see that search result page actually change over time.
Interesting.
And be showing more information or more transaction, more product stuff, depending on the query. So that's something that you just keep track of. And for your own keywords, you can see that without using a tool, just by doing a Google search and then click on all the top 10 results and say, what are they showing here? So Google understands, if they're showing product pages for that query, Google understands people are looking to buy when they type the query in. So that's the kind of, you want to have good optimized product pages and category pages. If they're showing more editorial or informational content, then you need to create some content around that if you want to rank for that query.
Right. And the latter is more for upper funnel, I guess, education.
Right.
And if you're smart about your website navigation and kind of reverse engineering this, you're going to send people to the right place. Yeah. And hopefully Google.
I think way too many e-commerce sites ignore informational content. They think about like, we want to get people right to our products where they're going to buy. Well, you got to bring people to your site and get them to know your brand first. Obviously, again, PR is a fantastic way to do that. But from an organic search perspective, the best way to do that is by providing really helpful informational content and videos and things like that, that people start finding you more and more and they say, I didn't know about this brand, but they seem to know what they're talking about. And they've got really good information. Maybe I want to spend some time there and I want to look at their products and I want to get to know them more.
Makes a lot of sense. I know you said we could probably spend a whole hour talking about link building, and we don't have to get into that level of detail, but maybe quickly, as it relates to PR, some challenges I know we run into are that publications are sometimes less willing to include backlinks. There's a value to that. Maybe that's why they don't want to do it to the companies they cover. So, that leaves us scratching our heads. I mean, we have to make a choice. This may be good for PR, not so good for SEO, so it doesn't help. With bylined articles too. So I don't know, what is your advice there? I mean, is a bylined article worth it, for example, if they don't give a backlink, or maybe it's just down in the bio?
It can be. So yeah, this is, as you said, this could be an awfully big subject because things that used to work really easily, just publishing guest posts on places and putting links in, things like that, or just putting out press releases and thinking that, the link in a press release is going to get you to rank. Google is, again, getting better and better at sniffing those out and saying, like, this is not really high level content. This was published simply to get links, and they're going to devalue that. So, press releases are still valuable for building your brand. Don't look to that for a source of links. For the most case, unless your press release gets picked up by a major reputable news site or, publishing site, and they publish it and they include a link to your site, then it's incredibly valuable. Then it becomes actual, probably credible content. But just putting press releases out there and having the typical aggregator sites that just publish them willy-nilly, Google doesn't pay that much attention to that. The other thing I want to talk about guest posting for a moment.
Sure.
Google's, and they just put out just last week a brand new algorithm update that is specifically targeting link spam and looking at things like affiliate links and guest post links. This is something that they've been going after for years, and now they're increasing on that. So Google's policy is that if you publish something on another site that is your self-publishing, it's really about your business or your site, and you're linking back to your site, that should be marked with a tag called rel equals no follow or rel equals sponsored if it was paid for. Now,
why would somebody want to do that though?
Right. The negative about that is because people have this idea that doesn't pass any authority. It doesn't pass any, link juice through to my site.
What is the benefit for them to do that? They're telling Google, don't ignore this, I guess. I mean, what is?
Yeah, well, it doesn't ignore the link. It just says the no follow tag on a link was designed by search engines to indicate this is a link that we're linking to, something like that, but it should not be given authority. The authority that normally Google would give to links. Now, one thing I want to say quickly about that is we know from testing, and we know from even some things that Google has said, that they can ignore that if they choose to. Sometimes they'll see a no follow link and they'll say yeah, it's no follow, but it's still, that link still has a value to us. And so we're going to kind of count it anyway. That can happen. You can't guarantee that'll happen, but that can happen. The thing is, the truth of it matter is that more and more, if you want to get links from content on other sites, it has to be something that really appears on that site as being highly relevant to and valuable for the people on that site. And then the links on that, any external links on that, could have some value. You're kind of cloaking it there. You're kind of making it look like it's not a guest post or something like that. But the traditional, what we call guest posting, where I'm Bob from XYZ Shoes, and I'm writing as an expert on your site here, and by golly, here's some links to my my site XYZ Shoes. That's the kind of thing that Google is saying, we really don't want to value that. That's obviously for commercial purposes.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming things like watching keywords, making sure they're in your content and headlines and the article body, it's something you should be doing anyway, regardless, right? It's something you should be doing.
Yeah, it's still, Google still uses words a lot, and words matter. And so we have tools within our platform to help you do that, to help you figure out simply the sites that rank highly for this topic that you're writing about tend to have these other words on them. And maybe you should include those if they fit. Don't just put words on the page. It doesn't, that's SEO from 15 years ago. Just putting words on the page for the sake of the words is not going to help you. But if it fits in the context, if it helps add something to the page, yes, because search engines still use that. They still look at the words. Now, it's not the words alone. It's not just having the right words on the page, the right keywords that are going to get you to rank. You've got to have everything else working for you that we've talked about in this podcast. So, but it's still something that you want to be looking into doing. What are the words that we should include in this article or this post that help search engines and our users understand fully what this is about.
One thing we haven't talked about is our social signals. Are those important? Does Google factor those in?
Not at all.
They don't.
I can say unequivocally. Yeah, that's, I think, something that I say.
So you can be a major influencer on whatever, TikTok, Instagram. That doesn't matter.
Well, let's not say it doesn't matter, because obviously, we go back to the whole thing of brand building and becoming a trusted brand on the highest level. But also, what we do think search engines do use often social links for is discovering new pages. So, getting a link out on Twitter or, TikTok or someplace like that, because Google does crawl those sites. They don't crawl everything on those sites. It's just
Right.
too huge, but they do crawl them, and they do look at what's on there, and they do follow the links, meaning that their bot will, sometimes go through those links, and that can help them discover new sites and new pages on the web. So I think that's the main value, other than, obviously brand building and exposure for linking out from social media, is it's one way to get, especially if you're a newer site and a less known site, it's a way to get Google to discover the content that's on your site, index it potentially, and then potentially start to rank it. Super.
Well, those are most of the questions that were on my list. Is there anything else I should be asking about SEO and PR and the connection between the two, you think?
Yeah, I think just in terms of thinking like the content on your site is PR also. I know a lot of, when we talk about PR, we're constantly thinking about getting our information out on other sites and other places, obviously. But think about the content on your site as part of your PR strategy. For one thing, like if your PR efforts are successful and you get people to come to your site, they're still making a judgment about you. And that judgment is going to be based on the quality of your site and the content on the site. So, you're not just optimizing for search engines and to try to get found in search engines, but again, for the user and for your PR users. And it's part of, I think a PR team or a smart, I would say, search engine optimization team on a larger site would be interfacing constantly with the PR team to think about,
absolutely,
what is their thinking on what matters to people, what matters to our brand, what we want to be known for, the information that we want to get out there, the message that we want to communicate, so that the SEO people can help the content people to create the kind of content on site that's going to help that.
So there has to be a good dialogue between the two.
Definitely. If you're part of a team, if you're a large enough site to be part of a team, I think it's essential and critical that there be dialogue between you, with the social people, with the content people, with the PR people, the marketing people, all of these. I mean, I'm internal. I mean, SEO Clarity isn't just a platform; it's a website.
Of course.
So I'm in charge
eat your own dog food.
Yeah, I hope we do. We use our own tool for sure.
Excellent. Well,
but I'm product marketing manager, so I'm constantly interfacing with our SEO people, with our marketing people, with our sales people, with our PR people, to talk about and think about, and first of all, to add my insights, because I'm a product marketer. I'm thinking about the messaging of a product. And that can help our content people, our SEO people, our PR people to know how to communicate. But I also learn from them, because they're out there getting feedback from clients, from people, from prospects, all kinds of things that help me to shape how I should be shaping the product message. So that's, it's, definitely dialogue, interfacing, very important.
Super. I think we're done. Are we done?
I think we're done. I think we covered
for this go round.
SEO. Nobody else needs to know anything about it.
That's it. We've covered everything, right? But before we wrap, I would like to encourage people to check out, I think it's called SEO Chatterbox on your LinkedIn.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, it's a newsletter. LinkedIn has a new feature, relatively new from a few months ago, where you can publish a newsletter on LinkedIn. Just Google SEO Chatterbox, and I think you'll find it, or look for that on LinkedIn or on my profile on LinkedIn by my name. But I publish it every Friday, SEO Chatterbox. And what's unique about this newsletter is part of my job is I spend a lot of time every week on SEO social media, a lot of SEO forums out there. And what SEO Chatterbox is, it's simply a listing of the things, the news items, the articles, the posts that SEOs were chatting about most during the previous week. What got talked about? What created the most buzz? You'll find that on SEO Chatterbox on LinkedIn. Now has over 7,000 subscribers, and I'd love for your audience to be among them.
Well, I will include information and links in the show notes.
Thank you.
And with that, Mark, I thank you for joining us on PR Dun and Dutter, and look forward to staying in touch. Take care, Mark.
Take care. Great to talk with you, Bob, and thanks for having me on.